We are live. And what a good place to start this book launch with the sip of a margarita. Hello, everyone who's joining us.
Hello, everyone.
I'm Sally Hepworth, and I'm here with Jess Dettmann, the author of How to Be Second Best, and most recently, this has been absolutely lovely. Am I on the screen? We're going to warn you, this is going to be a very interesting type of book launch where we may
not
potentially...
a shambles. We won't use the word shambles.
Definitely not a shambles. But we can't say that we may occasionally have our heads off screen, that there may be issues with dangly earrings or sequins getting caught on things. But I think this is how we roll, isn't it, Jess?
I think so. I think it's very on brand.
I think
we're staying on message, which is,
so.
Controlled chaos.
I was about to say, which chaos. Is what? Okay, so to those of you, hopefully we've got some people joining us now. We are here today to host the virtual launch of Jess's new book. This has been absolutely lovely. And this is going to be absolutely lovely today. Even though, Jess, before I officially welcome you here, this launch was meant to be an in-person launch, wasn't it? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Very disappointed that we're not going to be in the same room together. Probably a few more margaritas would have been consumed if that was the case. But here we are today, and the good news is that we're able to connect with so many people who are here at home. So with no further ado, let me introduce Jess and her book. So everyone knows Jess, right? If you don't know Jess, what are you doing? Everyone knows Jess. She is the author of How to Be Second Best, which is the book that caused me to fall in love with her. There it is in the background. Have a look, which everyone said amazing things about. In fact, I think Kathy Lett referred to you as a disarmingly charming writer. I mean,
disarmingly, yeah. She's got no arms. Poor Kathy's just armless now. So no more rapier wits. Sorry, Kathy.
I mean, it's a pretty good arms or otherwise, a pretty good thing to get from Kathy Lett. And since then, you've gone on to bigger and better things with this new book, which we are going to talk about later. And I'm going to tell you all how amazing it is, but you actually don't have to take my word for it, because a whole lot of amazing authors have had a lot of nice things to say about this book. For example, there's one here. In this gripping novel, Dettmann nails the funny, sad, and bizarre nuances of family life. Now, that one's from Sally Hepworth, author. So you do have to take my word for it.
She's a nice lady.
Trust her opinion. All the other ones are from better authors. Tim Minchin says Dettmann's tone is addictively dry and laugh out loud funny. Honestly, that is the best way to just categorize your novel.
What I love about author quotes like this is, to be professional, they refer to you by your last name. But only really close friends call me Dettmann. Everyone, like my mates, just call me Dettmann. So it just sounds like everyone's like, oh yeah, my mate Dettmann.
Yeah, I'm going to call you Dettmann from now on.
Yeah,
Dettmann. In fact, the next one, Dettmann's portrayal of messy modern family life is packed with the delicious humour, I like that description, and balanced with moments of real poignancy. And that one comes from Joanna Nell.
Gorgeous.
And then we also have Rachel Johns, who said, a pure joy to read from first page to last. And from Rachel Johns, and I could not agree more. So with all of that intro, thanks, Johns. Yeah.
Thanks, Nell. Thanks, Johns.
Yep. And Hepworth.
And Hepworth, Minchin, and Lett. Thank you.
So I suppose with that really big preamble, I would like to welcome Dettmann here today.
Thanks, Hepworth.
And put her through the paces of telling her a little bit about this particular book. But before we go into exactly what the book is about, let's talk about book launches, because, and let's talk about not just launches, but releasing a book into a global pandemic? Because I imagine this release period is looking a little bit different from the first book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
It's a bit strange, I will say that. It's not as different as you might think from launching a first book, because then your first book comes out, no one knows who you are, you don't get tons of media and interviews and stuff. So this is sort of just feels a bit like that, really. Whereas in a non-pandemic time, I assumed I would have been flown all over the world, non-stop. First class, obviously, first class. I've written 2 books. And that's not happening for anyone, let alone authors. But, you know, I am really happy that the book came out at all. I know authors who've had books postponed because of COVID, which is really heartbreaking and difficult. So I'm just thrilled it's out there. Bookshops are open. They still exist. Some of them did really well last year, and I hope they all continue to. And it's really fun to be able to do stuff like this online that everyone has just got tons and tons better at. Possibly not me, but...
or me. But I think people do.
We're figuring it out. We're having a go.
We sure are. And interestingly, I'm sidetracking a little bit because some people are just starting to join us. But one of the moments of panic.
Hi, late people. Hi, thanks for turning up late.
Welcome.
Turn your phones off.
You.
No, don't turn your phones off.
No, just sit there and shut up and listen.
You'll catch up.
But one of the things that panicked Jess and I when we realised that this event was going from a in-person event a few months ago to a virtual event, and then we found out that it was going to be a daytime event. What was our reaction to that, Jess?
Will we be able to drink, or will we look like terrible, out-of-control lushes?
And so we decided that if we did it on a Friday at lunchtime, it made sense that we would drink. And that made us infinitely more comfortable.
We're advertising or publishing in the 90s.
Yes, exactly. So, and I think we both feel a lot more confident now. But before we go into talking about what the book is about, everyone here, we're going to have an opportunity to answer questions at the end of this. So I will call out for questions again then. But if you come up with questions now or as we talk, you can leave them there in the comments bar, the private chat. The chat.
Now, I'm just going to say that if I look over like that, it's because I'm glancing at the comments. There's not someone there with a gun or anything. Don't panic. It's fine.
Oh, okay. If there is someone with a gun, just blink twice. And
I'll have a different code for that. If there's someone with a gun, I will scull my drink.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm not going to go into all of the ways that could go wrong. But I will also be looking down for that reason. So this is we've had an excellent preamble, but I now know that everyone is wanting to know what this book is about. And I think a lot of people have probably read your first book, loved it, and they want to know, is this a sequel? Are we seeing any other characters? Is this completely new? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's not a sequel, but there's one little Easter egg of an appearance by 2 of the characters from How to Be Second Best. They pop up for one scene in this, and I don't know who spotted them yet. Someone I know who's read this book 3 times and was a big fan of the first one didn't spot them, which really surprised me, but I've told her now where they are. Maybe you will spot them if you've read both. This book is about 2 women, Molly and Annie. Molly's 28. She's about to have her first baby. Annie is her mother, and she's 58. She has been looking after children since she was in her early 20s, and now she's looked after both of her parents as they've grown old and recently died, and she's decided it's time to try to reinvigorate the singing and songwriting career that she was almost really successful as a late teens, early 20s woman. She had a song selected for Eurovision back in 1981 and wasn't allowed to sing it because she was too heavily pregnant, gave up and came back from London to live in Australia, and pretty much has just looked after kids and old people since. So this is the story of one summer, just after Annie's dad has died, when the whole family, all her 3 children, her ex-husband, his partner, they all come back, they converge upon her father's house where she grew up. And that goes about as well as you would imagine. There's lots of drama and comedy and secrets and lies and mystery and intrigue and characters.
All that good stuff. And I have to say, Annie's story, there's a lot of stories in this, because you say it's a bunch of, it's an adult family, which I think is one of the really interesting things to muse on in fiction. You know, now you and me and a lot of people we know have these young families with these children that more or less have to do what we say, and their lives are reasonably under our control. And you examine this adult family, and even Annie, who is now a grandmother and you know, is in that next stage, she's lost her own father, and looking at her life and what, you know, what it could have been and what she could do now. So I think you do that so well.
Thanks. I just really wanted to examine the idea of, is there like a statute of limitations on parenthood?
Yeah.
And I think we all know there isn't. But
there isn't.
But that doesn't mean you sometimes wouldn't like there to be. Maybe when you've been at it for 40 years or so and your children show no signs of standing on their own 2 feet, as some of the kids in this family don't.
Exactly. But I was talking to my mum the other day, and I said, when do you get to stop worrying about your kids? And she said, I think I stopped worrying about you about 5 years ago, when I was 35. But it was around the same time I know. I thought, okay, so I've got till 35. But she said then I started worrying about my grandchildren. So yeah, I think
it just transfers.
Exactly. But I loved the examination of that, and I think it's something that we don't see enough of in fiction. But you really went into, there were several threads of stories that all come together in this book. What was your inspiration for these characters and for kind of bringing them all together like this?
I had a couple of points of like inspiration and jumping off with this. The first was thinking about what I might have become or might become if I didn't create something or do something with my life. Because I went through a long period after I had babies where I didn't really work. I did a bit of freelance editing, but I mostly just stayed home and looked after them. And it sent me completely bonkers. And I wondered, and also, you know, I've seen some women of my mother's generation who gave everything up for their kids, and some of them are pretty dissatisfied by the time they're 60 and 70. And it was really heartbreaking for me, especially that when they are then expected, as a lot of grandparents are now, to provide free childcare, which is something that is required by a lot of people in order for their careers to continue. But geez, can you imagine having to go back into the trenches again with little kids? I'm sure some people absolutely love it, but that frightens me that that's ahead. So that was one inspiration. The other inspiration is this picture, which, can you see that? Can we see that?
Oh,
this is ABBA. And I just really liked the look. There's her face, on Anjetta's face there. She's so left out. This just absolutely cracks me up, this picture, and it always has. And that's what inspired Annie's band, which is a band called Love Triangle, made with her 2 childhood schoolmates, Brian and Paul. And it turns out to be a love triangle in a lot of ways. And so that's where that came from. And I kept that up by my desk while I wrote the book, and I always kept going back to that.
Wow. And so I'm jumping in with where my brain goes now, but tell me, don't think I've asked you this before. In the terms of the way that you write, are you a planner? Are you a plotter? Like, you have these little grains of inspiration, and then what happens next for you?
For me, I tend to tell huge lies to my publisher about how much planning and plotting I've done, and how really this is basic. I mean, it's basically written. It's up here. It's all up here, I say. That's not true at all. And then they commission it, and then I spend a year crying, and then I write it really, really fast, more or less. No, this book was really hard to write for me. The first book I wrote was in the first person, in the present tense, and it had one protagonist and one viewpoint. and I structured it like a very traditional romantic comedy. So I had a template to follow, and this book wasn't like that at all, and I could not get a handle on what this book was until it was finished. And it's still not really like anything else. I can't say it's exactly like this author or that author. It's a bit weird. It's just full of stories, and you know, it has an ending and it all comes together, but there was a lot in it that I was trying to wrangle, and that was pretty challenging to wrangle all these people and stories.
Yeah, well, I got a real Liane Moriarty vibe from it, which I think you hear a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I do get a little bit of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the style, and I love how
you listen. Hollywood. I'm sorry, Hollywood. Are you on the line? Moriarty, Liane Moriarty vibe, I think she said.
You heard it here first. Definitely, and I love the way that you marry the humor, the light and the dark, you know, and that you are dealing with very serious, you know, scandalous, important issues, but you do it with that deft, light touch, which I think is something that Liane Moriarty does, but something that's becoming a lot more popular for people to read. They want to see themselves in their books, and people they know. And also, I think that kind of nuanced way that you write that I love, which is, you know, no one's all bad, no one's all good. There is a human being.
None of these characters are good or bad. They're just all people, you know. And a lot of them are a lot worse than anyone I've ever come across, obviously for dramatic effect. But I'm sure if I dug hard, I could find, you know, awful people like this. I just try not to surround myself with them.
They exist. I mean, interestingly, you often think that no one's as big and wild as we create them in our books. And then all of a sudden you meet one of those people and you think, I don't know if I could even put you in a book because this is just stranger than fiction. And no one would believe it. Bit much.
No, that's right.
And so this kind of ties into what I was going to ask you about the second book. And, you know, a lot of people say that a second book is the first book is the book of your heart, you know, and that you carry that book with you for a long time. If you've always felt that you have a book in you and maybe it's something you've grappled with for a long time, and, you know, you get to write it and then you find some success, which you did with How to Be Second Best. And then you say, okay, well, now I have to write another one. What is that going to be? That's not true. What's next? And I mean, it's not like that for everyone. Some people just want to tell a story and they are then happy to tell the next story. What was it like for you? Was How to Be Second Best the book of your heart? Was it always just a yearning for storytelling? And how did you find the second book?
I think it was a bit the other way around for me. How to Be Second Best wasn't the book of my heart. It was the book of, I've convinced someone that I can write a book and now I have to write a book. And I loved it, but it was me learning how to write a book, I have to say. And, you know, it was a pretty amazing experience and pretty magical. But this book I feel much closer to. I feel more proud of this book. It was harder. So this, I feel like, if anything, this one is the book of my heart. Or maybe the next one or the one after that.
Yeah. I agree with that. I actually have heard that said a lot, that the first book's the book of your heart. That wasn't my experience either. I think the first book was the training book, the book that made me realise that I liked writing books.
Because I didn't always think I was going to write books. I went to university to study books, so I learned that they were all written by important dead white men. And then I went into publishing, where I edited books by all sorts of people, a lot of them fantastic. And
fiction? Did you edit fiction?
A little bit, not too much fiction. I did a bit more of proofreading fiction once I was freelance.
Yeah.
I did enough editing of fiction to kind of have a bit of a handle on how it all worked. But I didn't always know this was for me. I wasn't brave enough for a really long time to even try it.
And what was the moment that made you brave enough? Was it just that you were at home with the kids and thinking, I need something creatively? Do you have a moment or a story for that?
No, I do have a moment. there was a moment about 5 years ago when I was just I felt like I was going to explode, and I was so sad, and I went to the beach, Drew, my husband, and I went down to the beach without our kids, and I stood there in the water crying and saying, I've got a terrible secret that I have to tell you, and this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with my life. And I think he probably thought I was leaving him. And I said, I want to write comedy, but you must never tell anybody I've said that.
That is the best story I've ever heard about the moment.
It was like bubbling up in me, and I was like, oh, I want to do this anyway. And I told him, and he was like, oh, okay, well, maybe write some funny comedy. You know, your blog's funny, do a bit more of that. And I realized, oh yeah, okay, I am writing some comedy. Maybe I'll write more. And at that point, I started looking into getting the blog posts I'd been writing published as a book, and no one was interested in that because no one knew who I was. And then a publisher suggested that my voice might lend itself to fiction, and I went, oh yeah, right, okay.
Wow, that actually, that scene of you standing in the water and crying and saying that is almost the start of a book, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and him wondering what you're going to say.
He's going, what is this? What is going to happen now? Oh, that, okay, fine. Nothing, no drama.
You've obviously been wrestling with it a bit before that then. And
yeah, well, I was very afraid of failing. I didn't want anyone to know.
Because it's embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was so embarrassing. Also, writing stories, it's so embarrassing. I was sure everyone was going to think that everything in the book was me, and that I was writing about my family, and I really wasn't.
No.
And I don't know why. I stopped caring.
And I think the thing that surprises people is that, or that is a surprise, is that it never stops being embarrassing, publishing, does it? You know, you're just constantly humiliated.
Yeah. Here's another weird thing that came out of my brain. Would you like it?
Yeah, but I think that people who read your books will be very happy. The shame's internal, and it generally
unless you go online and talk about it.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a lot of shame generation, but then there are books like this, which I will just tell you now. We're going to go to some questions in a minute, which hopefully there are some in the comments here, and leave some if not. But for those of you who haven't read this book yet, we're not going to give any spoilers out about it today, but it is available widely. There's going to be in the comment section, there's going to be a link that you can click on to buy it. It's available in all good bookstores. You can get it on Booktopia. You can get it on Audible. You can get it everywhere you want. You can go and get it. And I think one of the things, like we were saying earlier, that's been great about lockdown has been that people are reading, which is great. People are buying books, but one of the things that is a challenge for authors bringing out a book is making sure people know about it. I'm holding this up in a different way, and which is why we're doing events like this. And so if you are a book lover and if you love Jess's books, one of the best things that you can do is buy the book, tell a friend about the book, shout about that book on social media, and just spread the word. I mean, word of mouth is so important, isn't it, in those early days of a book
really
release?
Is.
And more so than ever now.
And there's plenty of places you can leave a review. It doesn't have to be long. Goodreads, Amazon, the bookshop you buy it from usually will have a website. It can be really short, like the one I had recently that just said big fat nope. Oh. That was good. It can be nicer than that if you want.
Yeah, like a big fat yep.
Yeah, big fat yep. That would be fine. Just leave it at that.
It's worth a try. And even I often have people saying, I'm not on social media. How can I help? And the answer is tell a friend. Like, use your actual voice.
Tell a friend. Lawn signs, like politicians have, that's fine too. Lawn signs are good. Sheets hanging off a freeway overpass. That's
sandwich boards.
Sandwich boards. There's heaps of options. You don't have to be on social media.
Be as innovative as you like. I have a few more questions, but I'm just going to check down into the comment section because I can see here that we have had some questions. We've had some comments, Jess, about your sleeves. Someone has said it is worth watching this purely for those delicious pink sleeves.
My sleeve action.
People really use the word delicious about you a lot. I think you've been called deliciously funny quite a few times down here, and I agree. Oh, someone's drinking an old-fashioned. I'm going to have another sip of my drink.
Who's drinking an old-fashioned? Oh, that's my cousin.
Oh,
hey, Nina.
Good. And Nina has also asked, what is your favourite book at the moment? So maybe something that you have read recently that stuck in your mind.
I'm having a bit of a break from reading, a little bit. But what have I just read? I just really enjoyed Tana French's new book, The Searcher. She's an Irish mystery and crime writer, and I loved that. She's amazing.
Good. Yeah. And do you have a favourite book of all time?
I do.
What's that? Tell us that just for fun.
It is. It's probably behind me. Is it right there somewhere? Hold on. Bear with. Yes. It's this book. It's called Brother of the More Famous Jack. It is by Barbara Trapido, or Trapido. I've never known how to say her name. This isn't the copy. I stole a copy from my school library when I was
good for you.
When I left school. I just kept it out, never took it back. It's just the most beautiful book, and it has inspired the way I write, live, love, everything. Everyone should buy it. I'm on a one-woman quest to keep it in print. It was written in the early 1980s. I buy it whenever I see it in a bookshop, and I urge you all to read it.
Well, you've just, I'm going to buy one of them. Wow, that's good. I haven't even heard of that. There you go. We have another question from Kimberly, and she says, what motivates you to keep writing when you feel like you've hit a wall, Jess? Is it alcohol?
That is a really good question, Kimberly. Both times, the fact that this has been a contracted book that I have to hand in, the mere thought of money, or the mere thought of disappointing people that have put their faith in me, that's huge for me. I'm a massive people pleaser. I don't know if I would have ever finished a book without having a huge team of excellent supporters behind me, like I have with HarperCollins. They're just tremendous. So that's been really big for me. Also, I go away from it. I walk away, often I want to walk away for months, but overnight sometimes we'll do it. Or either I walk away or I just force myself through it. I just stay there. That's, a few different ways I tackle that.
I think fear of disappointing people is huge, isn't it? Like that's almost the number one for most of the authors I know, even more motivation than the money, just not to be ashamed.
Not to have to go, I can't do this. I said I could and I can't. That's the worst thing.
Shame is a great motivator.
Isn't it?
We've had some comments about sequins. Someone's asked which of you wins the sequins prize, and obviously the answer is me. Ellen McMahon says third-person narration must be so much harder to write, but I think you could only tell this story in that way, and you did it so well. I quite agree. Do you have a preference between first and third, and why did you choose to do that?
I had never written anything in the third person when I started this book, and I flipped back and forth for about 6 months, rewriting it in the third person and then going back and fixing it into putting it in the first person and changing whether it was an omniscient narrator or two people or even three people's viewpoints. It took me ages to nail it down. But I think this book did have to just be told through those two women's viewpoints in the third person. And it was really hard. I kept forgetting that I was on their shoulder and not in their head. That's where a really amazing editor like Kate O'Donnell comes in handy. Yeah, that was hard.
Yeah, and I agree with Ellen that you did a really good job of it, and you would never know that you were going back and forth. That's astounding to me. It seems like a very strong, editorial choice that you made. So well done.
Eventually.
Just took a while. to make that decision, perhaps.
It did.
We've got, I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment from Malvina Yock. She says, such a common scenario, glad you've written about it. People in their 50s and 60s are often called the sandwich generation, looking after their aging parents as well as looking out for their children and grandchildren. Life is happening. Not much support out there for people in that situation, especially if they're also still working or just stopped working to do all the caring. And that's what you do address so well. In the book.
Yeah, thanks. I did want to tackle that. That just seems like a really unfair thing to have lying ahead of you after the exhausting child rearing years. What happened to retirement?
Exactly. Good for you covering that. Another question from Tori. She says, Jess, I loved the dynamics between the siblings so much. How early on in the drafting did the dynamic emerge? That's a great question.
That emerged really early, and it actually started. There are three siblings: Naomi, who is the sort of hippie middle sibling, Molly, who's the youngest, and Simon, who's the eldest. And Simon and Molly, in particular, go at it like cats and dogs. They fight. It actually started with Naomi, with the middle child, just being the point of equilibrium in the family, and I just wanted to explore how that must irritate both her older and younger siblings.
Do you have siblings? Is there any kind of lending from real life in this dynamic?
I'm the middle of three, the perfect middle child. But no, we're all really close. We all get along really well.
Yeah. Oh, that's boring. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Snore. Nina has said, Jess, I love hearing about the book and your experience writing books, and you look lovely. I totally agree with that one.
Thanks.
Alice McDonald, when you're writing, do you find it helpful to read other authors for inspiration, or do you put yourself on a self-imposed reading ban? That's a great question.
That is a great question. Sometimes a bit of both. If I've just remembered that is something I do when I get really, really stuck and I just forget how to write anything, is I will go and at random start reading a couple of pages from someone whose writing I love, and hope that I don't then attempt to copy their style when I go back into my own work. But you just need that little kick and a little reminder that writing is possible when you forget how.
Yeah. I've just had a comment from Nicholas Dettmann. Is that your husband?
That's my father.
Oh, your father, because he has commented, she usually has hit a wall because she often writes in an office chair with wheels.
In a room with a very sloping floor. That's true. Yeah, quite often I write. Yeah, that is where I get this sense of humour from. I do.
Thanks,
I write.
Dad.
I sometimes go away and I write at my parents' house, and the kitchen has a sloping floor, and I have to kind of prop myself behind the desk because otherwise I end up in the far northwest corner.
So there's figurative and literal wall hitting going on.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
you maybe deal with it in similar ways.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And Emily has said, Jess, any hints as to what the next book will be about? 3 is a charm.
Oh,
great.
The next book, as much as I know so far, will have a Shakespearean touch to it. And that's all I'm going to say right now.
Wow. That is intriguing and not what I was expecting, which I appreciate. And what stage of that book are you at? Is it kind of a glimmer of an idea?
It's all up to you, Sally. It's basically written.
So publishers that are watching?
Wow. It is somewhat plotted. I'm having a go at plotting this time and not just pantsing it, not just sitting down and seeing what happens.
I don't know.
Probably I'll end up going back to that, but
yeah, well, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I always end up each book I do it a little bit different because I'm plagued with the idea that there's a correct way of doing it, and I have not used that correct method in the past, but this time I will use the correct method.
Yes,
I want to do your philosophy too.
Yep, absolutely. We'll find it. We'll find the correct way to write. If
you wouldn't mind letting me know when you find it,
I will.
I'd appreciate that. Another excellent question here from Tori. I loved the role that music played in the book. Did you have a soundtrack playing while you wrote?
Yes, I did have a soundtrack playing. And I, in fact, made a Spotify playlist. And if you go onto Spotify and look for This Has Been Absolutely Lovely, there's a playlist there that's public, and you can listen to all the songs that inspired the writing of the book or that feature in the book, because there's a lot of songs mentioned that people listen to. Of course, I have quoted none of their lyrics because I was an editorial assistant at the beginning of my career and spent a lot of time finding out exactly how much money it costs to quote 3 or 4 words from a song. So I didn't quote any songs. But yeah, there's a lot of musical influence in the book.
So we've got a soundtrack, so people can go and look for that. That is very cool. And someone has said, the sharpest pencil has said, just want to say, I think you found the right way to write books. Yes.
Thank you, sharpest pencil.
I think whatever you're doing is working for you pretty well. I have another question while we wait if there are any more. And that was, if you, I haven't given you the heads up for this because I know you enjoy being put on the spot.
I love it. It's my favorite thing ever.
Who would you get to play in the movie? Who would you cast in the movie if this was made into a TV series or a movie? Have you got any?
I don't have that in my head. I should. That's Has anyone else out there got any ideas?
We'll take casting ideas in the comments.
Yeah, I guess it depends who's making the movie. Are we talking a British cast, American, Australian? I don't know.
Think it's yours. Have a think about it, and we'll come back to that another day. Maybe we'll pop that up on Instagram. Another question that I had was, how is your skirt going? Is it still holding up? Is it still zipped up?
Oh, yeah, see, it's zipped much of the way. Not all the way though, but enough that I can probably stand up without it falling off. I'm not going to try.
Okay. So that was going to be my next question.
If you didn't see this on Instagram earlier, I'm wearing a skirt that has never, ever fit me, has never done up all the way at the back. And I realised that a Zoom launch or an online launch was the perfect opportunity to wear such a ridiculous garment.
Of course it is. I mean, it would be better if it was like we could see it, because it seems to be blocked by your
Here you go.
It's so
it didn't fall off.
Yeah, this is just the perfect time. Now we've got some suggestions here. We've got Roseburn for Molly. Love.
Yes. Oh, a bit old for Molly, Roseburn. Yeah, isn't she my age? Oh, Sally's gone. All right.
Age are young.
I guess the lunatic is taking over the asylum. Oh, you're back. Good. Hi.
Oh, sorry. Did I disappear? There was a monster
but it was fine, and
earlier.
Nobody panicked, and it was all completely fine, and I managed. You'll be very pleased to hear.
Very good.
I was just saying Roseburn's too old.
Too old. I always think, because I underestimate how old I am, that people that are my age are still young, and then I realise it's a terrible awakening there.
Yes.
Nina has said, I could see your first book as I read it. Any plans to get it made into a TV show or a movie?
Maybe there are things afoot.
No comment today.
No comment.
That's right. Oh, this is the best way to answer that question. Watch this space. And this is actually a great time to let you know that Jess, if you do not already follow her on Instagram, what the hell are you doing? Jess and I, you may not realise, have not met in person, but we are best friends because we met each other on Instagram. And the thing that I value more than anything else in the world is humour. And I knew immediately that Jess was someone I wanted to spend more time with. And now we are in each other's inboxes pretty much on a daily basis. And this could be you if you go and follow her on Instagram.
It's not just Sally. I'll be anyone's friend. Anyone.
Honestly,
also,
she's very...
Can I just quickly say that on Instagram, I met Christy, and Christy made me cookies, and she sent them to me from Perth, and they look like the girl on my book cover. And I just think that is the nicest thing. Thank you very much, Christy. She's called Jetlag Mama on Instagram if you want to go follow her.
That is the nicest thing ever. Oh, good, you're having a bite. And that's the way that you can connect with people on Instagram. So go to, I think it's at Dettmann.
At Jessica Dettmann, author. Imagine if Christy was a murderer and I've just poisoned myself and I died in the middle of this. But we'll have it on camera. I know. I will sell so many more books.
Oh, yeah.
I could go viral.
I'll go and, and shill it for you to help your starving children after you die. And also we know to find Jetlag Mama and that she's responsible. So that's good. Now we've got, before I'm going to go into in a second, because we've got about 5 minutes to go, I'm going to go into my favourite thing to do when I interview people, which is 10 quick questions.
Okay.
Where it's a rapid fire answer. But we've got a couple more comments here before we do that. Christy says it's a big fat yep from me, which I think is probably the comment of the day. And I could not agree more.
Thank you,
Mary says the cookie is awesome, and indeed it is. Once again, Jetlag Mama, was it?
Yep.
Jetlag Mama, if people need cookies made for special occasions and things, we'll just give her a shout out. Carla says Olivia Colman for Annie.
Yeah.
I do love Olivia Colman.
I love Olivia Colman. I think that would be a great one. Thank you, Carla.
Okay, and there's just a few more little comments saying you're welcome, moi, which I think is kisses, which...
No, actually, that's Christy, the possible poisoner. She's saying, whoa. So
it's
maybe
an evil laugh.
Oh,
we know who you are, Christy.
Yeah.
Not such a smart killing after all. But if on the other side, Jess does survive, we know that the cookies are good and we should order some just so
they're delicious. Yeah.
So Jess, are you ready for this? Do you want to just loosen up a bit? Shake it off?
Yeah. I'll probably put my neck out if I do that. We don't want any of that.
I don't want you to think about it too much, like a couple of seconds if you need it, but just fire it back at me. We're going to start. Chocolate or cheese?
Cheese.
Favourite child?
Does that have to be one of mine?
No.
My mother-in-law's second son.
Wine or coffee?
Wine.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Of course. Flats or heels?
Flats.
Obviously. Own towel or communal?
Own towel, Sally.
What kind of psycho would share towels with their family?
Until the internet told them to stop.
And then maybe buy everyone their own coloured towel. Kettle, do you own one?
I own a kettle and I use a kettle.
Bridgerton or Downton?
Oh, Downton. Downton all the way.
Good. Although I did like Bridgerton too.
Oh, too much.
What about the... I enjoyed the Duke. Diet Coke or Pepsi?
Proper Coke. Full strength Coke. Full strength Coke. Once a year.
Goodness me. Last meal on death row?
Oh, don't care as long as someone else is cooking it.
Oh, anything. But you don't want the prison slop, you know, you want them to go out and get something good.
I would have scallops wrapped in bacon and like a bucket load of pasta, so I'd be in some sort of coma state before they did me in.
Food coma. Any dessert?
Chocolate mousse. A lot of chocolate mousse.
Yeah, good. I'm satisfied with that. Okay. Well, listen, that brings us up to time. So before we go, I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you for your comments. If there were any comments that were not answered, we know that you can go and talk to Jess now via her Instagram account, where she is fabulous and funny. But most importantly, what you need to do now is you need to go down to your local bookstore, click on the link in the comments here, go to your Kindle or Amazon and download it, go to your Audible, wherever you get your books, go and get your hands on this book. You will not regret it. It's going to be the book of the summer, and then go and tell all your friends about it and write reviews about it. And, you know, then you can thank us later because you heard about it here first.
Thank you so much, Sally.
It is an absolute pleasure. I know that there is going to be a huge book and it's already done so well. And I am really looking forward to seeing it everywhere.
I appreciate
Thanks,
your support.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Bye.